Hello, everyone. We are on day 13 of this year, and I don't know about you, but I already feel a little bit behind, but I wanted to catch you up on a couple things that I'm pretty excited about. So, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being a part of my life, because you joining me is as much inspiration as you could ever imagine. I so look forward to this time on this broadcast with you. And today I'm going to be talking about creativity, my favorite subject, but not just creativity as in writing or painting, but really just living a creative life is what I love talking about. But first of all, I want to share with you something really cool. So my daughter gave me one of my favorite gifts ever for Christmas. For those of you who don't know, my daughter Julianne is part of the fitness world, and she's the master trainer for a corporation called Cycle Bar. And she finds some of the greatest stuff and relating to fitness, of course. So my word of the year, I chose a word of the year. I don't know if you do that, but my word of the year this year was resilience, because I feel like that's so much a part of my life and that it's my mantra. I just know that as long as I've got resilience in my life, that I am going to be okay no matter what. So my daughter gave me this gold necklace, and guess what it says? Resilience. Isn't it beautiful? It's a little gold bar with a really fine chain. And the best part of it is that it can be used while you're working out. Sweat doesn't bother it. Working out, saunas, nothing. It is a necklace that I've even worn to bed. So thank you, my beautiful daughter, for giving me not only my favorite gift of the world, but something that reminds me that I have a resilient life. And so that's my fun thing that I wanted to share with you. So I've been working on something today that's going to be sent out to the people that are on my mailing list tomorrow. And for those of you who want to be on my mailing list, just message me your email and I'll pop you right on there. I usually talk about creativity or give bits and pieces of my story that sort of give you insight into resilience, actually, and creativity. And shouldn't we all be living a creative life? Because that's what life is. Day-to-day decisions are creativity. Sitting down and writing an email, that's creativity. Sitting down and finally writing that book that you always said you wanted to write, that's creativity. So I was working on this email for tomorrow, and I'm giving in the email 4 ways to harness your ability to be creative consistently, because that's the hardest thing. People have a hard time with consistency. And then I also give a big bonus tip for capturing your best ideas. And so I was thinking, as I am on day 13, I guess, of this new year, that as I said, I'm feeling a little bit behind, but my focus has been these past 14 days on really providing information that can be useful to you as a creative being, as a resilient human being. And, did you know that the most creative ideas that you have often slip by without capturing them? And there's a book out called The Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. She talks about how she believes that great ideas are out there floating in the great consciousness, ready for us to grab hold of and to act on. And so often we have a fleeting thought and we say, oh, that's a good idea. Maybe I should do that. And then what happens to it? You go about your day, you forgot what that great idea was. As hard as you try to get it back, you don't. And then that beautiful idea that could have been something so special is gone. Now, I know why. For one thing, you have 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, it's a little disputed. They say, I've read everywhere on the internet today, it's between 50,000 and 80,000, but let's just go with 60,000. How many thoughts does that give you in an hour? 2,500. 2,500 thoughts, that is too much to fathom. That is crazy. How in the world did you discern the thoughts that you act on? Well, they say 20 to 40% of our thoughts are habits. So when you have that thought, I'm going to get up, I'm going to brush my teeth, I'm going to make a cup of coffee, I'm going to sit down and do my emails. Well, those are thoughts that are on autopilot. So you have the thought and you do it. There's no real thought and action needed other than just doing what you do every day. But, you know, there's something that happens in between those habit thoughts and the thing that you are doing. For example, if your day starts with reading emails, you get often caught in a spiral of distraction. And then suddenly that blog or that article that you were going to write starting at 9 o'clock this morning gets put off until the afternoon. And then sometimes it never gets started. And then what happens with that? My gosh, sometimes that thought disappears and you don't remember what you were going to write. So that's why it's so important that you put your creative mind on autopilot. And that takes some specific strategies, and that's what I'm going to share with you today. Because creativity is as much about a strategy as it is a commitment. And it's even more important that you have that in place before you have the inspiration, because inspiration comes as a result of intention. It comes as a result of a thought that's acted upon. And that's when creativity hits the magic button and you get going. I always struggled with my first two books, which were I published in 1991 and 92 or 93. I can't quite remember. And I remember just writing those books when I felt like it. And I would start, like, sometimes I'd be in the carpool line picking up my kids, and I'd pull out a receipt from the grocery store and write down a thought that I had about the book that I was writing. And hopefully I gathered all of those receipts into a bundle, and somehow they all made sense when I sat down to finally write. And the books took me much longer than they should have. And so I looked to my late husband, who was a television screenwriter and wrote movies as well. And he wrote every single day. I'm not kidding. Even on the weekends, he'd get in there and write something. It was his passion, but it was also his job. And he was an incredibly successful screenwriter for 27, 28 years before he died way too young. He died at 54. He was incredibly successful because he had a strategy for using his creativity. He didn't let anything go to waste. Thank you for those hearts that are coming up this way. He had a strategy that was no fail. And what he taught me was invaluable. So I'm going to share just a couple of those points because I've got them gathered all together for the future to share with you. But I'm going to start with this. First of all, you create a contract with yourself. Now, my husband wrote whether he was under contract or not. When he was under contract, he had specific deadlines, and he had to turn in the first draft by a certain time, and the second draft by a certain time, and the final draft by a certain time. And if he didn't, it was his reputation at risk. And that's why he was always hired, because he was dependable. He would come up with the stories and the characters and the ideas and the scripts exactly when he was supposed to. And so even when, say, we would be on the writer's strike, which the Writers Guild had strikes all the time, like every 4 years or something, he would go into the office and write every day, no matter what, because it's something that needs to be honed and practiced. And if he wasn't under contract, he was under contract with himself. So he would specifically say, by the end of this Writers Guild strike, I'm going to have a full script that I can pitch to the networks and be right back in action as soon as that Writers Guild strike is over. And he did. And so I started doing that with myself. I began creating contracts with myself saying, I want my book finished within 6 months. And I would write that contract out, and then guess what? I'd hang it someplace where I would see it every day. And it was a reminder that I knew that I had work to do. And I wasn't going to let myself down. It was important to me. If you can't trust yourself to follow through, who can you trust? It's so important to honor that contract with yourself. Now, number 2, and this is something else he taught me, is to create a ritual around your writing. Because sometimes you'll just sit down and it will flow no matter what, and other times you will need a ritual to get you going. That's why rituals are created, because they're specific actionable steps that you can take to get to the end result. And so for creating a ritual, for example, mine is, for getting my mind in gear, I start with choosing a nice soft music. I don't like to use anything with too many words, because the words that I hear with music gets confused with the words that I want to flow. And so I usually choose something that's just musically oriented, or if it is words that it's so low, it's just the music that I hear and not the words. And then my secret for writing passionate pieces, when I'm really into these heavy, heavy pieces, I put on opera, because I love opera, and yet I don't understand the words. It's the emotion that I get from the music. So it doesn't matter if there are words in the opera, because I don't understand them, but I hear and feel the emotion, and it's hugely productive when I do that. So I set my music, and then I get a cappuccino. I've been doing that since I was 16 years old. As I've shared with you, I had the privilege of touring Italy when I was just 16 years old. I sang and I danced with a group of wonderful people that to this day I'm still friends with, and I happened to marry in 2011 one of the men that I traveled with. So thanks to Facebook, we reconnected. How about that? Facebook can be really wonderful. Anyway, so I started drinking cappuccinos at 16 before anybody in America really knew what a cappuccino was. You couldn't order one anywhere. And so I had my first one in Italy and was hooked ever since. So I came back, and my one suitcase stuffed full of souvenirs for my family after having been gone a year and a half. And the one thing that I bought for me was an espresso maker, and it was packed in all of my clothing. So I brought that back, and I continued my tradition until they started creating cappuccino machines in this country, and voila. So I've never been without them since. Okay, so what did I say? I start with music. I then go on to a cappuccino, and preparing it for me is as much fun as anything. And then I sit down to my desk. Now, usually I'll have a candle going because I love good scents, and I've got a candle going right now. It smells so good. It was a gift from one of my clients. Anyway, then what I do is, if I will usually say some sort of prayer, or meditation that I ask that the words flow, and you have your own words for how you want your creative flow to happen, but I will usually say a prayer and ask that I am used to the highest good, that my words are the highest good for all who read them, and that if there's one person out there that needs this, please let me continue. And then I sit down and say, okay, what am I going to write about? And I force my thoughts by saying something like, I was just thinking about the difficult time I had after I had such devastating personal tragedy, and I lost so much, and suddenly I was the sole support of my family. And I had to provide the income and make sure that my children were in a safe emotional place, that I could be their mom and their provider. And what this did was it threw me into like a chaotic state, because I was no longer what I thought I was. I thought I was a stay-at-home mom. I thought that I was working with my husband, who was a screenwriter, and that I was his editor and his idea person, and many times we worked on the stories and the characters and the dialogue together, and that was my job every day, taking care of my kids and working with David. And then suddenly, when David was gone and I had tragically lost my oldest child, I didn't know who I was, because all I could see was the grief and the sorrow and the fear. And so I felt like my identity had been stripped away from me. Now, that's exactly how I write a blog. That's exactly how I get to the place that I want to write whatever I'm writing. And that article ended up being called, "Are You in the Midst of an Identity Crisis?" It was published by a publication called The Startup on the internet. If you want to, maybe I'll put the link to it in the notes on this broadcast after I'm done. And, I'm so grateful because a lot of people connected with that article. And it all started by using the words, I was just thinking about the time that, and then I went on from there. So number 3, that was number 2. Number 3 is making a commitment to plan for your creative time. Put that in your calendar, in your date book, on your phone, whatever you use as your calendar, because that's making an appointment with yourself. And then every time you do it, congratulate yourself. And at the end of a month, treat yourself to a dinner out, or a new workout top, or a great bottle of wine. And remember that this is step 4. Rewards after each completion give you so much to look forward to. And then when you have the great big reward that you need, like after finishing a book, plan a big fat vacation or something spectacular. And that will motivate you. So you see, all 4 of these things, by creating a contract, creating a ritual, making a commitment in your calendar, and then giving yourself a reward. Those are all the things that make it possible for you to continue to put your creativity on autopilot. So you see, those are all things that I learned from my late husband. Thank goodness, he was so brilliant. And then I think I promised in the beginning that I was going to give you this bonus tip, which this is how to never lose a thought again. You keep a small notebook, and I buy them in 6-packs on Amazon. You can buy them in my email that's going out tomorrow. I'm actually going to, I put a link to a little 6-pack that you can go on Amazon and buy them for $8, $7.98 I think. And so what you do is you keep one in your car, in your purse, in the place where you put on your makeup, or shower, or you always have your great ideas in the shower. Keep it close. And then put it also in your car, did I say that? And at your desk. And these little notebooks are so invaluable because you will have them with you at all time. You won't have to gather receipts and try and write them on the back of grocery receipts because they always get lost. And so then those are your gifts, your thoughts that come from the universe, that are little gifts that you will be using in your life. And whenever you say, I don't know what to write about today, you go to one of those notebooks and there it is. There are all those brilliant thoughts that were gifts from God just for you to write about. So that's what I want you to know, is that you have a creative destiny. All of us have a creative destiny because all of us have a creative mind. Don't deny it. You were creative when you were little and you played with your dolls or your trucks or your sandcastles or Play-Doh. You are all creative, and that's why we're here on this planet, to use that creative mind to make a difference. And I hope that you can take what I've told you today and make that difference. So thank you for joining me. In my email that goes out tomorrow, I'm also talking about my 5-day free blogging challenge. It's called Blogging is the New Calling Card, because guess what? Blogging gets you noticed on the internet in a huge way, whether you are a writer or not. If you write about what you know and that's your business, guess what? Your SEO goes up like this. I know from experience, being a real estate agent, I had many phone calls as a result of my blogs about my personal life or about writing. And because of it, I ended up with clients. So if you want to join me on that 5-day challenge, I would love for that. Thank you for joining me. I am so glad. Have a great day.